Explosions in Astrakhan, Russia, what Ukraine signed in the Netherlands, and a scuffle in the Verkhovna Rada. These are just a few of the topics we'll cover today on TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch our broadcasts, and we're looking forward to your comments. And here's what else will be featured in this episode. An explosion, a fire, the night poisoned by a single gas. A Shahed drone struck a high-rise building in Zaporizhzhia.
The blast was so strong it hit, and we didn't know where the next one would land.
How the wounded were helped and why. A repeated Russian attack, this time with missiles, ended in failure. Torn down tricolors and foreign mercenaries serving the occupiers.
They send them into the meat grinder, we destroy them, and they send even more.
TSN witnessed the battles for Pokrovsk. How Ukrainian forces are advancing toward the city center. There will be no Christmas truce. Is there any progress in the peace negotiations?
We are working on security guarantees so that the war does not start again. We do not want the war to start again. With
whom did the president meet and what did he agree on in Germany and the Netherlands? And how is all this being received? In Moscow? A Shahed drone hit a high-rise building in Zaporizhzhia. 4 people were injured. They suffered shrapnel wounds and poisoning from an unknown gas. 1 man is in serious condition. While firefighters were extinguishing the blaze that engulfed several floors, the Russians launched another attack on the regional center, this time with missiles. Air defense forces managed to shoot them down as they approached the city. Daria Nazarova will tell you more about yet another explosive morning.
Around 5 in the morning, Zaporizhzhia once again came under enemy fire. A Shahed drone crashed into this apartment building. In an instant, 3 floors burst into flames like a torch. Now, instead of several apartments, there is nothing but a charred ruin.
We're not allowed into the apartment because the firefighters are still working. When the firefighters say it's safe, then we'll be able to go in. But the balcony on that side burned down.
Ms. Tamara says that right after the explosion, she grabbed her most valuable things and ran outside in just her pajamas. I
was sleeping, and then it happened when there was a loud bang. And that's it.
And
so...
here. I didn't make it, but my mom was already calling when the fire had already started.
While the women are recovering from the terrifying morning and waiting for the rescuers to finish their work. At that moment, another air raid alert was announced in Zaporizhzhia. Just now, another explosion was heard in the city, so the rescuers have been forced to temporarily halt their work. Fortunately, air defense forces shot down Russian missiles in the suburbs of Zaporizhzhia. Maia and Irina were frightened, but they didn't abandon their work. The women work in municipal services. And
we heard 3 explosions, but we kept working, cleaning up.
Weren't you scared?
It's not scary when you exist.
Hide! He stands here under the house. Masha, where should we run?
They say that in the morning when they were going to work, they also came under Russian shelling.
There was an air raid alert. We don't know where to run to.
The women admit they've already gotten used to living in constant danger, since Zaporizhzhia often suffers from Russian attacks. So they say these shellings won't stop life. I think
we need to do something to work. Either stand here or go home.
This is our...
home.
They won't...
Please, we implore you, do not break us. We are incredibly fragile and delicate.
Right after the explosion, ambulances took 2 men from this building. One was in serious condition from carbon monoxide poisoning, the other had shrapnel wounds. Medical assistance was provided on the spot to an elderly woman who was injured. In the first few hours alone, about 50 residents reported damage to their homes. 19 of them are beneficiaries, people with disabilities and displaced persons, and they are promised one-time assistance, 15,000 hryvnias. While they are being housed in a local shelter, all the consequences of their arrival are still being determined. Daria Nazarova, Andrei Khupovka, Zaporizhzhia, TSN 1+1.
2 children and a woman were injured in the Kharkiv region. A drone hit their house in the village of Chervony. The girls are 12 and 17 years old. Medical workers provided them with assistance on the spot. 12 people were injured as a result of Russian shelling in Donetsk region. 6 guided aerial bombs. The enemy dropped them on Oleksieva Drushkivka. 6 city residents were wounded. The occupiers carried out 4 bomb strikes on Drushkivka. They also attacked with FPV drones. 2 people were injured. 2 people were wounded in Kostiantynivka, which the enemy shelled with artillery. Medical assistance was also needed for residents of Lyman and Mayaki. In Kherson, a drone attacked a car. The driver was wounded. In the city, a volunteer warehouse and the bus station were damaged. An ambulance vehicle was mangled by explosives dropped from a drone, and 5 apartment buildings along with about a dozen private houses were damaged. In the suburbs of Odessa, a drone attacked a large warehouse with household appliances. A massive fire spread over hundreds of square meters. Efforts to extinguish it were complicated by repeated air raid alerts. A farm became a target for the Russians in the Korb community in Chernihiv region. After Geran drones struck, a fire broke out there. Preliminary reports say 7 cows were killed and equipment and buildings were damaged. And in the Kulikivka community, drones destroyed a house. This is London's largest single-year investment in Ukraine's air defense. The United Kingdom is allocating £600 million for air defense for our country. The new support was announced by the head of the British Ministry of Defense at today's meeting of the contact group in the Ramstein format. John Gilly noted that Putin continues his brutal attacks on Ukraine, and in just the last 2 months there have been 20,000 drone and missile attacks. Thus, air defense remains an important priority. £600 million from Britain will go towards supplies now and next year. London promises air defense systems, missiles and automated turrets for shooting down drones. They are also announcing the start of production of new Octopus interceptor drones in the United Kingdom. Thousands of units will be delivered to Ukraine every month. The situation in Kupiansk is worsening for the Russians, but the Kremlin does not want to admit it. This is what analysts from the Institute for the Study of War are reporting. Just as the defense forces are counterattacking the enemy and clearing the city, the Russian leadership is claiming the opposite. Supposedly, the entire counterattack is on the verge of collapse. Footage showing the successful ongoing operation to block the enemy in Kupiansk was released by the fighters of the 13th Kartia Brigade. Meanwhile, on another section of the front, in Pokrovsk, enemy losses have increased by 30% over the past month. This was stated by the air assault forces who are holding the defense there. In Pokrovsk, the enemy has become more active in the western part of the city and is trying to break through near the village of Hryshain in the north. There, the defense forces are also trying to prevent the Russians from linking Pokrovsk with Mirnohrad, so they are destroying the enemy as it infiltrates the settlements of Rivne and Svitle. According to the analytical portal Deep State, the occupiers made some advances the day before in 4 settlements in different directions, in particular in Huliaipol, in the Zaporizhzhia region. Russian flags, which our soldiers took down in Pokrovsk, and foreign mercenaries serving in the enemy's army. The situation in the Pokrovsk direction remains difficult, but our fighters are gradually managing to advance. They are moving toward the city center to take down Russian tricolors that the occupiers hung up for media appearances as if they had captured Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk under control. At the same time, Ukrainians now have to destroy even the reserve army of the enemy. In particular, the 76th Airborne Division, which the occupiers had held back for the main assault on the city. Yulia Kirienko will tell you more about how Ukrainian soldiers are fighting for Pokrovsk right now.
We move directly toward the next buildings, go out onto the street and turn left.
The commander of the Scalia Regiment's Grotto unit watches the screen intently. The drone's thermal camera tracks 2 of his soldiers at their position near Pokrovsk.
Turn left, left. Do you copy?
On the stream transmitted by our drone to headquarters, only ruined buildings are visible where our assault troops try to move between them and remain unnoticed. Ukrainian assault troops.
Count on them. Anti-drone cloaks, which don't let heat through as much, so they're not as visible.
Ukrainian soldiers have already managed to gain a foothold on the northern outskirts of the city, which means they have destroyed the Russians' plans for a complete capture. Pokrovskaya.
An enemy combatant who successfully manages to cross over the railroad tracks is indeed alive, I would confidently say, unless we specifically detect him due to adverse weather conditions or other unforeseen circumstances. Fog, he lives there for 2 days.
Now the task of the stormtroopers is to gradually move deeper into the residential area. Or rather, what's left of it.
A great many new and various groups have been established, significantly closer to the city center in recent times.
In the morning, defense forces repelled another series of assaults. Pokrovskaya. The Russians are already bringing in reserves here to prevent our troops from advancing through the city. Several enemy mechanized units. Our soldiers have already destroyed it.
There are cemeteries there. There, in the center.
Now, according to the defense forces, the 76th Russian Airborne Division is storming the positions of Ukrainian units. But the Russians' reserves are not limitless either. Due to heavy losses, up to 100 soldiers in just 1 day along the entire Pokrovsk direction, Russian commanders are increasingly deploying foreign mercenaries to the front.
Here are two of them. The fighters from Kelly have just brought them in.
In an uneven firefight, 2 servicemen eliminated 3 enemy soldiers. They captured the enemy and took 2 prisoners. The newcomers themselves were already wounded. They were found, tied up, and taken prisoner. The captured prisoners are absolutely not official representatives of the Russian Federation. They had, in fact, signed a binding contract, as numerous documents found during their apprehension and subsequent capture clearly confirmed that they had willingly signed up for financial compensation and the promise of citizenship.
An ID, it's the fighters.
Republic of Kalandia.
As proof of our troops' advance in Pokrovsk, Russian tricolors have been captured as trophies. The very same flags that Russians hung around the city on camera to create the illusion of total control over Pokrovsk. Now they're here with the fighters of the Skelia regiment.
This enemy flag was successfully captured on Volodymyr Street. An aggressive enemy sabotage and reconnaissance group unexpectedly rushed our defensive positions, and they tried, so to speak, to prominently display it, attempting to demoralize our forces, to prove that they were there. At that moment, we spotted the group. The group was completely destroyed, and we took their flags. Achieving the capture of the enemy's flag is, like taking the battle flag of a brigade. As soon as you take the flag from a brigade, the brigade is disbanded. Isn't that right?
On the table next to the flags are documents belonging to Russians who were eliminated in Pokrovsk. Here are passports, military IDs, bank cards, and icons.
In Pokrovsk, this was a sabotage group. As I understand it, this was their reconnaissance platoon. They tried to get into our rear, but our guys work very professionally.
During our conversation, we constantly hear commands over the radio, which the commander gives to his assault troops, and then suddenly silence. An explosion appears on the screen. An enemy drone spotted the group and struck it.
Grandpa, into the box, into the box. And the tourniquet. Grandpa is intact, everything's fine. Are you okay? Here.
Like this.
Just like this.
One of the soldiers received a minor injury. To his arm, another to his leg. An evacuation vehicle was sent for them. It too is being guided through total darkness by the drone's thermal camera.
Feel for the box, feel for the box. Let it go, let it go.
The advance in Pokrovsk is actually achieved at the cost of extraordinary efforts by the Ukrainian military. No matter how many Russians are eliminated, the occupiers keep sending new ones.
It's always the same tactic. People. They send them into the meat grinder, we destroy them, and they send even more.
Logistics for the defense forces still remains a challenging task due to the actions of the Russian drone group, Rubicon, which has now concentrated its forces specifically on the Pokrovsk direction. But our soldiers continue the operation in the city, because the neighboring city of Mirnohrad is nearby. And if one city falls, the defense of the other will fall as well, say the defense forces. And this is exactly what they are trying to prevent. Yulia Kirienko, Alexander Shian, Ole Mostovi, TSN 1+1.
They were making sulfur for explosives, but in the end they blew themselves up. The defense forces struck the Astrakhan gas processing plant. This is one of the key enterprises in Russia's oil and gas industry. And among other things, it supplies enterprises of the occupiers' military-industrial complex, producing sulfur that the enemy then uses for explosives. In addition to this, it produces gas condensate and liquefied gas. This year, Ukrainian armed forces drones have already struck this plant several times. At that time, it was reported that the plant had stopped production, but Ukrainian drone operators decided to verify this. And they sent drones to the plant's territory again. Explosions were recorded there, and a massive fire broke out. The enemy authorities have not yet disclosed the extent of the damage. The European Union will continue to raise the cost of Russia's war. With these words, the head of the European Commission announced the preparation of new sanctions. According to Ursula von der Leyen, these restrictions are necessary to force the aggressor country to come to the negotiating table. So Europe is preparing new sanctions and has immobilized Russian assets for a long time. Just the day before, the EU Council expanded restrictions against the shadow fleet of the aggressor country. 5 businessmen fell under the sanctions who, directly or indirectly connected to the major Russian state oil companies Rosneft and Lukoil. And 4 more organizations that help transport Russian energy resources. These are companies from the United Arab Emirates, Vietnam, and Russia itself. All of their assets will be frozen. They will be prohibited from providing funds, and their entry or transit through EU territory will be restricted. to compensate Ukraine for hundreds of billions of dollars in damages from Russian attacks and war crimes. With this goal, an international commission was established in The Hague to review claims from our country. The first to sign the Convention on the Compensation Commission were the foreign ministers of Ukraine, the Netherlands, and Moldova. In total, representatives from more than 50 countries around the world attended this conference. The International Commission for Reviewing Claims for Ukraine was established under the auspices of the Council of Europe. It is expected that on the very first day, 35 countries will sign the convention. The International Commission will make decisions regarding claims for compensation for damages caused by the Russian war. In particular, they will also take into account cases that have been recorded in the Register of Damages over the past 2 years. The organization has received 85,000 claims from individuals and companies, as well as from government bodies in Ukraine. The president of Ukraine, at the signing ceremony, he emphasized that Russia must face consequences for its aggression as long as Ukrainians remain in Russian captivity, and as long as Ukrainian children abducted by Russia have not returned home. All Russian war crimes must have consequences for those who committed them. We hope that the Tribunal for Russian Aggression, will truly begin its work not only for us, but for everyone who seeks peace in Europe. We expect that all compensation mechanisms, from the Register of Damages and the Claims Commission to actual payments, will start functioning, and that they will receive strong, powerful, and sufficient international support so that people can truly feel that any losses caused by the war can be compensated. This war and Russia's responsibility for it must become a vivid example so that others do not dare to choose aggression. Today, Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Maia Sandu discussed the peace agreement and EU accession. Their meeting also took place in The Hague. Zelenskyy thanked his Moldovan counterpart for her constant support of Ukraine and spoke about our path toward peace and the country's recovery after the war ends. The president is confident that the path to the European Union for Ukraine and Moldova is simultaneous and shared, and that further progress must be closely coordinated. Americans and Europeans are reporting significant progress in the negotiations in Berlin. Their delegations from Ukraine and the United States held talks for 2 days in a row. Later, European leaders also joined the negotiations. Katerina Fedorchenko found out more about the agreements.
For the first time since the start of the full-scale invasion, ending the war seems possible. With this statement, after numerous diplomatic meetings in Berlin, the host of the summits, the Chancellor of Germany, spoke out. Over the past 2 days, the German capital has hosted negotiations between the President of Ukraine and representatives of the United States. Later, European leaders joined them, and yesterday evening they all had a phone conversation with Donald Trump. The American president called the conversation with the European leaders excellent and also stated that peace is closer than ever before. Meanwhile, the press has learned important details that negotiators are currently working on. These concern the security guarantees that Ukraine needs. The United States is ready to pass them through Congress and make them function as legal obligations. This information was later confirmed by the president of Ukraine. According to Volodymyr Zelenskyy, security guarantees are being discussed. They are similar to Article 5 of the NATO Charter. The US president, in turn, reminds that Europeans will play an important role in such guarantees.
Regarding security guarantees, we are working on this with Europe. Europe will be an important part of this, and we are working on security guarantees so that the war does not start again. We do not want the war to start again.
After the negotiations, European leaders made a joint statement that the parties supported the creation for Ukraine many national forces that will operate with the support of the United States. First and foremost, these forces will contribute to the restoration of the Ukrainian military and secure the airspace of our country. This includes, in particular, operations directly on Ukrainian territory. The parties also want to develop mechanisms for monitoring, ceasefire, and responding to violations. What exactly this will mean in practice is not being disclosed at this time. However, the negotiations are being given high marks officially in Berlin.
We are seeing real and tangible progress. This progress has become possible thanks to the coordinated actions between Ukraine, Europe, and the United States. So we will continue close cooperation with President Zelenskyy and President Trump in order to achieve what we all strive for, a just and lasting peace that will preserve Ukraine's sovereignty and strengthen its security.
Europe will work on such important issues as the reconstruction of Ukraine and financial support. The leaders insist that Russian assets will remain frozen. In just 2 days, Europeans will begin discussions on whether these assets can be used for a reparations loan to Ukraine.
We have proposed to cover 2/3 of Ukraine's financial needs over the next 2 years, which amounts to about 90 billion euros. So this week's discussions in the European Council will be decisive. We know that we can never match the sacrifice of the Ukrainian people, but we will support their struggle for survival, for as long as it takes.
What will happen next with the peace plan that was discussed in Berlin? According to Zelenskyy, in the coming days, American negotiators will finalize the documents and present them to the Russians. After that, they will consult with the President of the United States and then meet again with the Ukrainian team. And such a meeting, according to Volodymyr Zelenskyy, could happen as soon as this weekend. When the peace plan gets closer to its final version, a meeting with the President of the United States is possible. However, whether Moscow will agree to state its positions during the current negotiations remains an open question. The President of Ukraine says that if the Kremlin does not agree to a peace acceptable to us, the United States may increase pressure on Russia and expand its assistance to Ukraine.